Giants in America have been erased from our history, yet their bones once touched the heavens and their stories still echo through the land. Long before textbooks dismissed them as myths, Native American legends spoke of towering warriors, of giant skeletons with double rows of teeth, of chiefs like Tuscaloosa whose height struck fear and awe. Why did the Smithsonian cover up these discoveries? Why were the Mound Builders, creators of Cahokia, Poverty Point, and the Serpent Mound, painted as savages when their works reveal wisdom rivaling Egypt and Babylon? This is not just a mystery, it is a revelation. These ancient giants, whispered of in the Bible as the Nephilim, stand as warnings and wonders. Their shadows stretch from Patagonia to the Ohio River Valley, from Denisovans to the lost race of giants that science itself overlooked. Could it be that myth is memory, and that behind every buried mound lies a story of pride, fall, and divine judgment? In this journey, you will discover why archaeologists spoke of giants, yet their words vanished, why explorers saw chiefs taller than their soldiers, why oral traditions carry truths too dangerous for empires to admit. And here is the question I leave to you. If history silenced these voices, what else has been buried from your eyes? Comment your thoughts, challenge the story, and let us know if you believe these giants once walked the earth. Like, share, and subscribe, so together we can uncover the hidden history that still shapes us. For the stones cry out, and the earth remembers. The forgotten witnesses of the land. Across the windswept plains and forested valleys of America, voices of the First Nations rise like echoes carved into stone. They tell of giants in America, towering figures who walked among their ancestors, beings who were at once terrifying and awe-inspiring. The Lakota spoke of thunder beings who shook the earth with every step. The Cherokee remembered battles against cannibalistic giants whose hunger devoured entire villages. In Patagonia, explorers stood stunned before chiefs so tall that their heads rose above the shoulders of ordinary men. These were not idle myths. They were testimonies of encounters woven into sacred memory. And yet, the modern world has treated them as fables, dismissing Native American legends as fantasy, refusing to hear the wisdom preserved for thousands of years. But what if the ancients were right? What if the same Nephilim of the Bible, the sons of pride and rebellion, walked the soil of the New World? When tribal elders spoke of giant skeletons with double rows of teeth, when they described massive warriors whose jawbones could cover a man's face, were they not describing the same beings remembered in Genesis, when the mighty men of old, men of renown, brought terror to the earth? This is not coincidence. It is convergence. It is the witness of many nations confirming the same truth. The story of the land is written not only in books, but in the soil, in the sacred mounds that rise like sleeping giants themselves. For generations, these oral traditions have been ridiculed. Western scholars claimed that people who could align their monuments with the solstice, who could measure the metonic cycle of the moon, could not possibly know their own history, but the elders carried their knowledge faithfully. They remembered floods, they remembered wars, they remembered the giants who brought both wisdom and destruction. Their testimony is a lamp in the darkness, revealing what the textbooks refuse to see. And here lies the lesson. When truth is ignored, arrogance becomes our downfall. By silencing indigenous voices, the modern world silenced the very people who held the keys to our forgotten past. Pride blinded the conquerors, but humility preserved the memory. The Bible says, "The stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." So too, with these oral traditions, the rejected stories may yet be the cornerstone of understanding our true history. This is not just history. It is a warning, a call to listen, to honor, and to rediscover what was nearly lost. For every voice that was silenced, the earth still speaks. For every truth cast down, creation cries out. And as we stand in the present, we must decide whether to continue ignoring the witnesses or to embrace their testimony and learn what giants truly mean for us today. The rise of the Mound Builders. Stretching from the banks of the Ohio River to the vast fields of the Mississippi, earthworks rise like ancient psalms written into the soil. These are the works of the Adena, the Hopewell, and the Mississippian, the forgotten architects of America. At Cahokia, the Great Pyramid of the Mississippi, a mound rose higher than 100 feet, its base greater than the Great Pyramid of Egypt. At Poverty Point, embankments of earth were shaped in such grandeur that they could swallow the pyramids of Giza 30 times over. The Serpent Mound uncoils across Ohio, aligned with solstices and eclipses, echoing the serpent myths told across the world. Who could say these people were savages when their hands built cathedrals of earth that still defy our imagination? Archaeologists measured these works and found astronomical precision. The moon's 18.6-year cycle was carved into earth. Processional roads stretched for miles, like sacred highways connecting holy sites, just as in ancient Israel, pilgrims walked toward Zion. This was not chaos, it was cosmic order. The Mound Builders looked to the heavens and mirrored its glory on earth, just as the psalmist declared, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands." In their mounds, the ancients proclaimed the same truth. And yet, hidden within these mounds, explorers uncovered giant skeletons. Reports spoke of men and women over 7 feet tall, some exceeding 8, their bones thick as the limbs of oxen, their skulls crowned with double rows of teeth. Some were buried with copper ornaments, pipes shaped with precision, and artifacts from lands hundreds of miles away, proof of a trade network, vast and sophisticated. These giants were not beasts, they were leaders, priests, rulers of ceremonies. But who were they? Were they simply a tribe of extraordinary size? Or were they the remnants of the Nephilim, cast adrift after the flood, finding refuge in a new world? The lesson is as sharp as a blade. Civilization is always more than what meets the eye. The conquerors who dismissed the Mound Builders as ignorant savages could not see what lay beneath their feet. But history, like the earth, cannot be silenced forever. Every mound is a monument, every buried bone a witness, every alignment a testimony that giants walked with men, and men touched the heavens with their designs. Here we find both beauty and warning. Beauty, that a forgotten people reached for the stars and left us a legacy of wisdom. Warning, that pride and violence can erase civilizations as mighty as Cahokia, leaving only ruins where once tens of thousands thrived. The same truth that struck the giants down still speaks to us. Arrogance leads to destruction, but humility builds forever. The story does not end here, for beyond the mounds lie secrets even deeper. The bones vanished from museums, the records erased, the cover-ups that cast long shadows. The next step in this journey is to ask why the world hides the giants and what power fears their truth. buried bones and vanishing records. In every corner of this land, whispers tell of giant skeletons unearthed, measured and marveled at, yet somehow lost, hidden or dismissed. Newspapers of the 1800s spoke of towering remains over 7 feet tall, skulls so massive a man could slip the jawbone over his own face, skeletons with double rows of teeth that baffled doctors and ministers alike. Explorers like John Smith, Coronado and De Soto wrote with astonishment about towering chiefs whose presence overshadowed their armies. And still, as time passed, these accounts vanished like smoke, buried beneath silence. Why? Because to acknowledge them would shatter the narrative of a tidy past, a past where the extraordinary was erased to protect the ordinary. Imagine a farmer digging in his field, uncovering bones that should not exist, a jaw wide enough to silence every doubt. For a moment, truth breaks through, but then officials arrive, the bones are carted away, and the story fades into rumor. The Smithsonian cover-up is whispered of, a shadow stretching across generations. Artifacts vanish into archives that never open. Measurements disappear from ledgers, and eyewitnesses are mocked until their voices tremble into silence. And yet, the Bible warns, truth cast down to the ground will rise again. These bones, whether hidden or destroyed, still bear witness in the memory of those who saw them. The lesson is clear. When truth threatens power, it is buried. But burial does not erase reality. It only delays revelation. Just as seeds hidden in the soil burst forth in their season, the secrets of these giants cannot be silenced forever. The earth remembers. The records may vanish, but the stories endure, carried in family lines, preserved in oral traditions, waiting for eyes that dare to see. And this is where you, the listener, stand. Will you accept the story you were handed, or will you search the shadows for the truth that was stolen? Comment what you believe. Were these giants real, or are they the great cover-up of American history? Your voice matters, because every uncovered truth begins with one who refuses to stay silent. The shadow of science and empire. As the bones vanished, a new empire of thought rose to take their place. In the late 1800s, anthropology and archaeology were built not upon open minds, but upon racial hierarchies and pride. John Wesley Powell, head of the Smithsonian Bureau of Ethnology, declared that Native Americans were primitive, incapable of building great civilizations. His mentor, Lewis Henry Morgan, divided humanity into savagery, barbarism, and civilization, placing white Western culture at the pinnacle and casting all others into shadows. Even the halls of power echoed this arrogance. Eugenics conferences where prime ministers, churchmen and descendants of Darwin sat, proclaiming which races were fit to rule and which would fade away. Against this backdrop, every giant skeleton became more than bones. It became a threat. For if giants existed, if the Mound Builders were wise, then the entire hierarchy of superior and inferior would collapse like dust. But pride blinds. These scholars ignored the testimonies of elders, dismissed the monuments rising from the soil, and silenced voices that had spoken for millennia. They crowned themselves guardians of truth while discarding truths that did not fit their design. And here lies a lesson as sharp as prophecy. Knowledge without humility becomes tyranny. The Bible says, Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. The empire of science built on arrogance did not liberate, it enslaved. It robbed native peoples of their history and robbed the world of wonder. And yet the shadow of empire cannot endure forever. Modern discoveries, from the DNA of Denisovans to the rediscovery of astronomical alignments in Cahokia, prove that the ancients knew more than we once admitted. Slowly, the false pillars are falling, and the truth rises like dawn. The arrogance of the past is being exposed, and the wisdom once rejected is returning. The healing begins when we listen, when we restore honor to voices silenced, when we admit that the earth holds mysteries that challenge our pride. So, what can we learn? That humility opens doors pride will always close. That real wisdom is not in controlling history, but in hearing it. That to deny the giants of the past is to repeat their fate, brought low by arrogance, erased by time. And this realization carries us forward into the next great mystery. If the shadows of science once silenced giants, what other truths lie hidden, waiting for us to uncover them? Giants across the world. From the deserts of the Middle East to the icy fjords of the North, the memory of giants is carved into every nation's soul. The Bible calls them Nephilim, mighty men of old, men of renown. The Greeks remembered the Gigantomachy, a war between gods and towering beings who shook Olympus with their rage. The Norse told of the Jotnar, frost giants who battled the sons of Odin until the world itself cracked. Across the Pacific, Polynesian tribes spoke of cannibal giants who roamed islands, feared even by warriors. Could all these cultures, separated by oceans, invent the same memory? Or is myth simply memory, a remembrance of a truth too terrifying to be written in plain words? In the mountains of Asia, archaeologists uncovered the teeth of the Denisovans, so massive that they dwarf the teeth of modern humans. In caves, their tools gleam with skill more advanced than Homo sapiens could imagine 60,000 years ago. And scientists now admit, these were not primitives. They were master craftsmen, capable, strong, and perhaps enormous in stature. When we connect these fragments, the giant skeletons unearthed in America, the legends of giants in every nation, and the genetic fingerprints of lost races, we glimpse a truth that transcends continents. The giants were real, and the earth still remembers their footprints. But this story carries more than fascination. It carries a mirror. For every culture that spoke of giants also spoke of their downfall. Pride, violence, rebellion against heaven. These were the seeds of their destruction. And so, as we ponder the mystery of giants, we must also ponder ourselves. For are there not giants still among us? Giants of greed, giants of corruption, giants of arrogance, that tower over humanity and cast their shadow upon the weak. The ancient stories are not just history, they are prophecy, warning us of what happens when pride grows too tall. The mystery of their disappearance. If giants in America and across the earth once stood so tall, why do we not see them today? The answers are as layered as the soil that covers their bones. Some speak of climate collapse, when floods and droughts swept away entire tribes. Others recall divine judgment, as in the days of Noah when the flood came and silenced the Nephilim. Still others point to wars with humankind, where ordinary men, fighting with courage and faith, brought down those who seemed invincible. And science offers another thread, that their bloodlines thinned, their height diminished, their strength scattered until they were no more than whispers in our DNA. Each explanation is more than speculation. It is a parable. The flood teaches that no arrogance escapes the hand of judgment. The wars teach that even giants fall before those who walk in truth. The fading bloodlines teach that every kingdom of pride eventually withers to dust. And this is the heartbeat of the lesson. The mighty fall, but the humble endure. History has shown it, Scripture has declared it, and the ruins of Cahokia and the shattered bones of forgotten kings prove it still. Look around today, and you will see echoes of their fate. Civilizations rise in pride, boasting of their towers, their armies, their wealth. Yet, time and again, arrogance births collapse. The giants are gone, but their shadow lives in every empire that believes itself untouchable. And perhaps that is the truest reason they vanished, not because they were too strong, but because they made themselves too proud. Lessons for the modern soul. When we speak of giants, we are not only speaking of ancient bones, we are speaking of ourselves. The giants of yesterday walked in flesh and blood, but the giants of today walk in systems of power, greed, and deception. They stand not in burial mounds, but in corporations, governments, and hearts consumed by arrogance. And just as David stood before Goliath, so each of us is called to face the giants in our lives. What does this mean for you? It means that the same power that brought down the giants of old is alive in you. The courage of those who resisted, the humility of those who remembered, the faith of those who walked with God. These are your weapons. When fear tells you the giant is too tall, remember that the sling in David's hand was stronger than the sword in Goliath's grip. When despair whispers that the world is too broken, recall that even the flood could not erase the promise of a rainbow. The healing comes when we realize that uncovering these stories is not just about history, it is about freedom. To restore honor to Native American legends, to admit the wisdom of the Mound Builders, to acknowledge the cover-ups of the Smithsonian is to heal wounds that still bleed in our culture. And for you, the listener, it is a call to awaken. Comment what giants you see today. Are they systems of greed, lies in history, or battles within your own heart? Your words matter, for they join a chorus of truth rising against silence. The lesson is eternal. Giants may fall, but truth rises. Giants may vanish, but their memory warns us. Giants may terrify, but faith conquers. Let the story of the giants stir your spirit, not as a tale of monsters long gone, but as a vision of what humanity must overcome. For the battle is not only of the past, it is here, it is now, and it begins with you. The story of giants in America is not just a story of bones hidden in forgotten museums or legends whispered by tribal elders. It is a mirror held up to us. These giant skeletons, these Nephilim echoes, these towering figures in Native American legends, they are not only shadows of the past, they are voices calling into the present. The Mound Builders who raised Cahokia, Poverty Point, and the Serpent Mound remind us that greatness is measured not by pride, but by vision, by the ability to align our lives with the heavens as they aligned their monuments with the stars. Their works were not the marks of savages, but of wisdom keepers, a reminder that sophistication and sacred knowledge were always present on this land long before conquerors rewrote the story. And yet, history was silenced, artifacts vanished, truths buried under the weight of the Smithsonian cover-up, leaving us with fragments and questions that ache like open wounds. Think of it. What does it mean when the bones of an 8-foot chief are unearthed, measured by respected scientists, and then erased from the record? What does it mean when double rows of teeth, skulls larger than human imagination, are described in old newspapers and yet dismissed by modern voices as fantasy? It means truth itself has been treated like a relic, hidden because it did not fit the story empire wanted to tell. But truth cannot be buried forever. Just as seeds sprout from the dark, just as dawn rises no matter how long the night, the memory of these ancient giants rises again. The Bible tells us that in the days of Noah there were mighty men, men of renown who filled the earth with violence. Native stories tell us the same, that giants once ruled, some with wisdom, others with cruelty. Greek myths, Norse sagas, Polynesian chants, every culture remembers. When many voices across the world sing the same song, can we call it mere coincidence? Or must we admit that myth is memory, and the shadows of giants stretch across every continent? This is not only archaeology, this is revelation. But their disappearance teaches us more than their presence. They fell because pride always falls. They vanished because arrogance always consumes itself. And here lies the lesson that breathes through their bones. The same fate awaits every giant we allow to rise today. The giants of greed that devour communities, the giants of corruption that strangle nations, the giants of deception that rewrite history. These are the enemies we face, and their shadow is as dark as the giants of old. Yet just as David stood before Goliath with nothing but faith and a stone, so too can we face the giants of our time with courage and truth. So when you hear of giants in America, of Denisovans with massive teeth, of Cahokia's lost glory, do not think of it as just history. Think of it as prophecy. The earth is telling us, remember what happens to those who exalt themselves. Remember what happens when truth is silenced. Remember that every civilization that forgets humility will be buried like bones in the ground. And yet there is hope, because humility, faith, and love are stronger than any giant. This story is more than facts. It is a calling to your soul. It is a reminder that you are part of the great unfolding of history, that the same courage that toppled giants in the past lives within you. It is not only about whether giants once walked this land, it is about whether you will let giants of fear and despair walk through your heart. The lesson of these ancient mounds, of these hidden skeletons, of these legends whispered by elders, is that we are called to rise higher, to walk in truth, and to honor the wisdom of those who came before us. If this story has stirred something in you, if it has made you question, if it has awakened a spark, let it move you to act. Leave a comment. Do you believe the giants once walked this earth, or do you believe they are still among us in other forms? Share your thoughts, challenge the story, join the conversation, because truth grows stronger when voices rise together. And if you feel the weight of this message in your spirit, if it has given you light in the midst of questions or comfort in the midst of doubt, I invite you to support this journey, not in grand ways, but in simple ones, through a like, through a subscription, through a small gesture that gives strength to keep uncovering these mysteries and sharing them with the world. Every act of support is not just for me, it is for the story itself, for the uncovering of hidden history, for the healing of silenced voices. Every gesture, no matter how small, is priceless because it says, "I too believe that truth deserves to be heard." If this video has brought value to your heart, if it has given you clarity in the fog or courage in the face of your own giants, then your presence here already means more than words can say. The giants may be gone, but their story is not finished. It lives in the earth, in the scriptures, in the legends, in the very questions that will not die. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of all, that history buried is never truly dead. It waits, like a voice in the wilderness, for those who will listen. Let us be those who listen. Let us be those who speak. Let us be those who stand before the giants of our time and declare that truth cannot be silenced, that humility is stronger than pride, that love is greater than fear. So as we close this journey, remember the mounds that rise from the earth like forgotten temples. Remember the bones that once touched the sky. Remember the legends that echo across nations. And remember this: the story of the giants is not only their story, it is ours. Like and subscribe to walk this road with us, to uncover the secrets still hidden, to join a community that refuses to let truth die in silence. Share this with someone who needs hope, who needs courage, who needs to know that no matter how tall the giant, the spirit of truth is taller still. Thank you with all my heart for walking this path. Your time, your voice, your energy are treasures beyond measure. Together, we are not just uncovering giants in America. We are uncovering the truth about ourselves, about our history, and about the power of faith to overcome every shadow. The earth remembers, and now so do we.